Hey everyone, Synth Designer back at it again with another video. Today we're going to continue our series on sound design basics. Hopefully you've been following along with our series so far. Today I want to get into a little bit about the attack, decay, sustain, release, and how to use envelopes. Now these are very fundamental aspects of sound design, and without knowing how to use the ADSR and just basic envelopes, you won't really be able to get into creating any sort of unique sounds. These are just the very foundations of sound design. Before I begin, I just want to remind people that if you like these videos, please like and subscribe, and leave any comments if you want to see anything unique or different on this series, or any other series for that matter. So let's get into it. In every synth, you'll see a section that says attack, decay, sustain, release. Now I'm using Serum here because it's so visual, and you'll see it'll help in a minute, but I'll show you that pretty much every single synth has this section. See, GMS here has it right here, and I'll show you how it works actually in a little bit, but let's stick with Serum for now to show the visual aspects of it. Now, what is ADSR? ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. These are the ways that shape your sound. Now there are two different types of envelopes, an amplitude envelope and a mod envelope. So the amplitude envelope is basically the sound, the fundamental sound of the synth. So as I shape this envelope, I will be shaping the fundamental sound of the entire synth. Right now, you can hear just a basic saw wave coming through. And you can see the great thing about Serum here is you can see how the sound flows. So right now the attack is very low. So that means that it's going to come very quickly. If I raise the attack, it slowly builds. You could see the sound moving here. And then it sustains here. This is the sustain aspect of it, right? Because the sustain is on full, so it's going to be on a full dB level. If I lower the sustain, you can see it, that little blue dot moving down here, and then it rests here. So let's get back into the attack aspect of it. It's a very quick sound coming now. Now the decay here, this is kind of how you can create longer or shorter sounds paired with the sustain. So if I take the sustain all the way down and have the decay moving around here, so that's how long it takes for it to come down, basically, to whatever sustain amount you want. So if the sustain is at 0, it's going to come down all the way. So this is how you can create plucks, basically. But you can also get longer decay tails here. See how it takes a lot longer for it to dwindle down because it's at 16.6 seconds. So those are just the basic ways of creating your sounds here. You could really create very, very short plucks. And then the release here, this is what gives you a little bit of a tail at the end. So the longer I make this release, the longer it will tail at the very end. You hear that? I let go of the key, but it continues at the very end there. And that's great for different types of sounds, but a lot of keys use that. Just to give that little end little bit. If I put it all the way to 0, as soon as I release the key, it's done. Because it flows all the way to the end. And that's a great visual aspect here, but it works the exact same way in GMS. So let's take a look here. You can see here that GMS has a simpler interface, so it's not as visual, but it's the same principles. The only difference is that from a default standpoint, the decay isn't at halfway, so it's going to sound a little bit different. Turn it up a little bit. So right now the attack is at 0, decay is all the way up, and sustain's all the way up. So let's see what happens if we take sustain all the way down. Well, it continues because the decay is all the way up. So if I want to get a pluck, I take the decay down. So it's the exact same thing, it's just not as visual. But let's head back to Serum. So now that we have a basic understanding of ADSR, we have an understanding of the amp envelope. It's as simple as that. If you want to learn more about ADSR, I have a very, very quick series. It's all through shorts on YouTube. Go to my playlist and you can find ADSR basics. But there's really not tons to it. It's a very simple concept, but it's the foundations of all sound, basically. Now, if we want to do more with envelopes, that's where we have to head to envelope 2. This is what is called the mod envelope. This is what kind of modifies the sound without being the fundamental aspect. So right now, you can see it's kind of layered over top. You can see envelope 1 was this, and then envelope 2 is layered over top of it. Actually, let's zoom in, actually. There we go. So we have 2 layers here. As you'll see, this has no impact right now. The entire sound is based on envelope 1, and that's because the mod envelope has to be attached to something. So we have our filter. Hopefully you watched the last section on filters, because this is where it's coming in to play. So we have our filter here just on a basic low pass, and as we remember, this is the sound that's coming through, and this is what's cut out. You can see it shaping differently. But say we don't want the filter to be static. Right now it's completely static. Well, this is where we can attach the envelope to it. And as you can see, the envelope opens and closes. And this is based on 2 things. First, envelope 2, and then envelope 1. Although envelope 1 is our amplitude envelope, envelope 2 is what modifies it, but without changing the fundamental sound. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but let's just play around with it and see how things work. So let's raise the attack here and see what happens. See, this section here shows how quickly the attack is working and how quickly the filter opens up. And we can move it to open up more, but it'll still be at the same rate. And because envelope 1 has that quick pluck to it, the envelope 2 is going to be limited by that, right? In order for envelope 2 to have a longer, more sustained sound, we need to up the sustain on envelope 1. Right? So it opens up and stays there because there's a sustain. Now if I were to turn the sustain all the way down, although envelope 2 is actually opening up and staying there, there's no more sound left, right? Now let's say I shaped it the same way as envelope 1. Turn the attack down, turn the sustain down. Now it's going to go all the way down because the sustain is down. And it has a quick decay. Now, if I turn the decay up, it's going to come back down slower, but again, it's limited by envelope 1. And that's why it's so great to visualize it here on Serum. So as this blue note here is flowing down, we can already see that it came down all the way in envelope 1 because the sound is gone. Now if we turn the release up a little bit on envelope 1, it sounds a little bit strange because as I quickly pluck it, it's done on envelope 2, but envelope 1 continues, right? That's the amp envelope going. But It doesn't quite work this very well in this sense, but it just shows you that how the two play together, right? Oftentimes you'll see both envelopes with a similar type of ADSR, and that's because you kind of want a similar vibe to it, right? If you want a quick plucky sound, you don't want a sustained envelope modifying the filter, right? You see? Say if I just wanted that quick sound, let's bypass this for a second. I have that quick pluck, right? But if I turn it back on, it has that kind of quick shut off, strange pattern to it. And that's where you're going to have to play around and see where sounds go. Now say if I want to create a pad here. Now pads tend to be longer, so I'll need to maybe up the sustain, up the decay a little bit, up the release. Same with envelope 2. Now if I bypass envelope 2, I only get this sound. I won't get anything else, right? But that's the great part about putting in an envelope into the filter section. I could get it to open up slightly, or a lot more, but only temporarily, right? It always comes back to the original point and starts at the original point too. Now there's a lot of different ways to use envelopes. This is only one basic way. Now I don't want to get too technical and into too many different ways. I think that's for a future video. I just wanted to set you up with the kind of basics of how to use an envelope. And quickly, let's go back to GMS and see a couple tricks there, just so we're not just stuck on a paid extra VST here. So we have just a basic saw setup again. I turned up the voices and the stereo a little bit. There's the sound. Now let's up the release maybe a little bit. See, on GMS you really have to up the release. But still, it's the basic sound there. So let's go into the envelope section here. So you can see this is where the destination is. It's into our filter. So say we take the filter down here. Same basic principle as Serum that I just showed you. It's on a low pass. Now we want the envelope to be affecting the filter, right? So let's up the attack maybe a little bit and turn this up. You can hear it decaying a little bit there as I turn it down. So they have a different setup where it's you have to turn up the amount for it to work, but it's basically the exact same thing. You can affect it in a different way. Now let's turn it all the way back down and see the difference. That's where the starting point is for the filter. Say we want to slowly get to that point, or slowly get up to a higher filter. You can hear it slowly opening up and then slowly decaying as well. So those are the very basics of how to use a filter and how to use ADSR in your filter. Remember, there's a lot of ways to attach envelopes, and this is the very basic way, but I wanted to set you up with the tools and show you how these things affect each other. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.